Today we're going to be doing brakes on our 2013 Dodge Challenger RT. We're going to go into pretty good detail on how to do everything. We already got one side done. Everything went pretty straightforward. I don't believe there's any other video on YouTube doing this specific model. So, yeah. So the tools you're going to need is a C-clamp, a hammer, any hammer will do, a flathead screwdriver, 1/2" driver, 3/8 driver, breaker bar, 10mm 3/8, 21mm 1/2" drive, and then a 13 3/8. And materials is going to be a new rotor, some gloves, brake clean, new brakes, a brush, and brake grease. And the last tool I forgot was an adjustable wrench. So first thing I'm going to do is take off the two bolts holding on the caliper. There's one right here, and then one right here. Just take those off. They're not on too tight. We were able to do it with the 3/8 drive. But you have to use a adjustable wrench to hold another nut on that will spin while you do it. Get those off. So once you get those two caliper bolts on, you have to take a number 3 flathead screwdriver and pry off the caliper because it is on there kind of stiff. And then you move that out of the way. And next we're going to move on to the, I'm going to turn the wheel here, spin it, make it easier. We're going to move on to these two big caliper bracket bolts, one right here and one right here. You may have to remove this other bracket right here, which holds the brake line in place. That's another 10, that's the 10mm. So we'll get those off next. So once you get those two big bolts off, they'll come off just like that. And then sometimes this rotor will get really stuck on, get rusted right in there. You might have to put some WD-40. Luckily this one came right off, no problem. These bolts were pretty on there pretty good. We had to use a breaker bar for the bottom one. That one was tighter. Next we're going to show you how we clean and prepare for the new ones. Taking the new one out of the box. First, we hit it with some brake clean. Wipe it down. Another shot of brake clean, just get all the oil on there that protects it. And then we'll do the other side as well. Next thing we do is take off the old hardware from the bracket. Spray it down. Take the brush off all the brake dust and the contact areas where the hardware sits. Next thing we do is we'll pull out these pins, clean off the old grease, or we'll just shove them inside the bag and re-grease them. Good layer, fit it back into the boot, and we'll do the same thing to the other one. Next we're going to put on the new hardware. Snaps right in place. All new and shiny. You're upside down. Perfect. So the next thing you want to do is clean out the caliper itself. A lot of brake grease or dust will get caught up in there. Hit it with a brush. These cardboard boxes that the brake rotors come in are super useful because you can use them to like just spray brake grease on them and collect all the dust that's coming off them. Yeah, you want to use a brush, any kind of brush really, just break up residual brake dust that gets caught in there. It's probably good. Hit it one more time with the brake clean. That's good. And then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna actually push back the pistons. You take an old brake pad and then you just grab your C-clamp. Fit it on there. So you take the C-clamp and you just push that in, and then move your hand, and you can see that it's just pushing the pistons back so you can fit the new thicker brake pads on there. And it's going to go to a point and you're not going to want to force it, just keep it right there. Undo it. It's all the way pushed back now. And make sure when you do this that you have the brake master cylinder open, because sometimes fluid will overflow. We're not doing that right now, but sometimes it will when you push them all the way back. Now you can fit on your new rotor, and this is a little trick to make it easier so it sits on all the way. Is you just take a spacer or something and you tighten on a lug nut. So it sits back and doesn't move, so when you're putting on the bracket and stuff, it doesn't move anywhere. Now we're going to put the bracket back on. Just line up the two holes. Very bright, the lighting's really bad. Get those two back on. Up and lower one. So we're gonna get these two as tight as we can with the regular 1/2-inch drive, and then we're gonna hit them about a 1/4 turn with the breaker bar, just so we make sure they're nice and snug. Good. Now we're going to put on the new brake pads. Next you got to take the little 10mm and put back on the bracket for the brake line. This one doesn't have to be that tight. I'm just snug. That's good. And now we're going to use some brake grease on the brake pads. Next you want to get the brake grease, you just want to dab it on the corners here. Make sure you don't get it on the pad surface or the rotor itself. On both sides where it touches the hardware. Just a little bit. And we're going to slide that one on. It's right into place there. And just do the same thing for the other one. And again, to make sure you don't get any on the pad surface or the rotor when you put it on. The back one goes on the same way. These pads both have the wear sensors. This shinier part right here is the wear sensor. It has on all sides of the rotor, so there's identical pads. Sometimes you'll get ones that are different, so you got to make sure you put them on the same way as you took them off. And next we're gonna put some grease on the caliper itself. And I like to grease the contact point for the pistons and this part where the brake pad sits right here, so it slides on good. Just take a little bit around the ring there. Those points. And then once you get it all greased up, it should go into place pretty good. You're gonna have to push back the sliders, and then you're just gonna grab your 2 bolts. And line them up. Putting these on, you have to use a adjustable wrench to hold in a nut when you put these on. They don't just spin. You just want to get them as tight as you can with a 3/8 ratchet. That's probably pretty good right there. Now that you got everything all on, make sure you have all 5 of your bolts that you took off that are tight. Take that off, and next thing you want to do is get inside the vehicle. And just push the brake pedal softly a few times, like 10 or so times, until it gets stiff. Right now it feels pretty stiff. Just gently push it slowly. And then make sure you put your cap on for this back on. And put the wheels back on and take it for a test drive.